Hello, my name is Angel Oral Alomar, and welcome to the How to Develop Your Psychic Connections and New Predictions for the Future Summit, brought to you by the Thrive Healers Network. Today we have an amazing guest. And guest, would you please introduce yourself and tell the audience what you do?
Hello, nice to see you. Thank you. My name is Roger Ford, and I am a energy healer, and I've been doing energy work for the last 41 years, both in England and in America. So I teach people how to do healing, and I also see lots of clients on a one-to-one basis.
That's awesome. So, do you practice a specific modality at all?
Well, in England, it's called spiritual healing, and it was really emphasized during the 1950s with a healer in England called Harry Edwards, who was a sort of world famous healer. And even in the 1950s, he used to get 3 or 4 thousand people coming to his demonstrations. And it's the same modality that he used as I was trained in over there in England. So we're sort of continuing with that same modality over here, but it's energy healing basically. But as I say, it's called spiritual healing in the UK.
Okay, I love that. Thank you for explaining that. So, how did you become interested in holistic energy healing? And can you share a pivotal moment or experience that led you to pursue this path?
I can, yeah, and like many people, I think we sometimes need something in our lives that sort of shifts us to start to explore. And in my own case, it was during the late 1970s. My father died quite young with lung cancer, and I was really trying to explore, if you like, in my own mind, why he died so young. Um, and I went to several spiritualist churches in England, and they're fairly common over there, which is a normal sort of church, except the person that's doing the service is a clairvoyant, a medium, if you like. And all of these churches I went to, they just sort of pointed to me and said, "Did you know that you're a healer?" And this is going back into the late 1970s. It wasn't like today where it's fairly well known. And I really didn't know what they meant. But I started to work with people and found that by being with them and just putting my hands on their shoulders or whatever, they started to change. And so that was my wake up call, I think. And that was the exploration I started in the 70s.
That's really interesting that people are out here telling you that you're a healer before you really even
I
knew
know.
it.
I mean, these days people would know what it meant, but as I say, going back, 40 years, it wasn't. I mean, it was known, but it wasn't like it is today, where it's talked about and loads of books and programs on, on Gaia and places like that. You can find out a lot.
Exactly, exactly. So, can you explain the concept of holistic energy healing and how it differs from other traditional methods?
Well, the word holistic really means whole. And the approach for helping people is really that it's no good just working on the physical part. Most people come to us with physical problems, but it's really working or helping people to work on the mind, the body, and the spirit. So when all of those are in balance, then that's when we are well and we stay well. But obviously, what happens is sometimes because of stress, diet, the environment, and so on, we get out of balance. And so the healer's job, if you like, is to rebalance, reset a person's body. It's like pressing the reset button on your laptop. And then the body starts to heal itself. The body has the desire to be well, I think. But we get in the way very often.
Exactly. You're exactly right. So, how do you perceive and work with the energy systems of the human body? And do you kind of dabble into like the chakra system?
Yeah, well, what a healer does, as I say, is to rebalance the body. So you're trained to learn how to connect as a healer
Mm.
with a divine source of energy, an external source of energy, and then to be able to transmit that energy through you and then into a third party, into a client, or your patient, if you like. And that has it can have a pretty profound effect on unblocking any blockages that they've got, which is making them ill in the first place. So I mean, there's a lot to it, but it's a very simple process. And we have to bear in mind that it isn't actually the healer that's doing it. There is a bigger source of energy that's actually working through us. We're just like the conduit, if you like, the channel for that energy to flow through us into a client.
Exactly, exactly. I love that you really explained that. I think that's going to be really, really helpful for the audience. So thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
So what is your approach to diagnosing energetic imbalances or blockages in your clients?
Good question. One of the things that's happened in England is that the medical profession there and complementary therapies like the spiritual healing, work much closer together. And so when I was in England, most of my clients came from hospitals or from doctors. It was quite well known over there. But one of the reasons I believe that made it this sort of close link was that we as healers have a very strict code of conduct. And one of the things that we instill into our students when they come on workshops is that as a healer, we're not allowed to diagnose. That isn't our job. So we don't allow, but the doctor's job is to diagnose. Our job is really just to sense the energy in a person where there's a blockage, release that blockage through channeling the energy, and then the body starts to, as I say, heal itself. And so one of the things that I noticed over here when we first moved 20 years ago is that people talk about the sort of work that I do as alternative. In England, it's called complementary, which I think is a much better word, because complementary infers that it's not just one or the other. Alternative almost says to someone, you can either do that or you can do that. And really, it's a combination of things, I think, which really enable a person to get really well. So doctors obviously can help in many areas, but there are other areas where complementary therapies are more useful for a client and probably more profound in their healing process.
Yeah, I love that they call it complementary, because it truly is complementary to, let's say, a therapist or a doctor or a licensed physician in like the doctoral field, all that stuff. So I love that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you determine the root causes of their issue? Like, I know I kind of just asked that question, but I'm wondering if you can elaborate on how you determine a root cause of an issue.
Well, it's a little bit like peeling the layers off an onion, I think, because someone will come to you with a problem, and it's usually a physical problem. And so obviously you listen to the client, you find out how long they've had the issue. And when it first started, because very often, if you go back to when it first started, something happened in their lives that triggered off, particularly, if it's a serious illness, something triggers these things off. I don't truly believe you suddenly wake up with cancer. I don't suddenly believe you wake up with Alzheimer's, or you wake up with a heart attack. The body's telling us all the time that something isn't going right. We're not doing something right in our lives. And so just listening to the story of a client. And then, of course, we also are trained to become very sensitive to energy. So when I'm working on a client, I can actually feel where there's an energy blockage. And then I guess a little bit like a plumber, I suppose, we sort of release that blockage, a bit like a plumber releasing, if you've got a blocked drain, he comes in and pushes his plunger down or whatever, and the blockage clears. We do exactly the same. And once that blockage is cleared, then our body's own innate healing ability kicks in, and people get well. We're just part of that process, if you like.
Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you so much for that. So how do you maintain your own energetic boundaries and prevent potential energy drain while working with clients?
Sorry, say that one again.
Sorry. How do you
Okay.
maintain your own energetic boundaries and prevent potential energy drain while working with clients?
Yeah. And that is a very common problem that practitioners have.
Yeah,
Um, and part of our training course is to teach people how to put this sort of invisible field around ourselves, if you like, which will enable us to retain our energy and not lose it. And a lot of people phone me and say, well, why do you want to come on one of your workshops? I already can do healing. And I'll say, well, that's great. Good to hear that. How do you feel when you finished? And they'll say, well, we actually feel quite tired. And that's exactly what's happening, is that they are allowing their energy to, their personal energy, their magnetic energy to flow into their clients. Whereas, as I said earlier, we need to learn how to transmit energy from the divine, from God, wherever you believe it comes from. So we're not using our energy. And so
exactly.
protection is really important. And we're trying to teach people like nurses, for instance. We get a lot of nurses on workshops because they work in a very negative environment in many ways, and they get they get exhausted. And so once they've been on the workshops and learned a couple of techniques, we teach them on how to protect their energy. When they come back to do a more advanced class, they are absolutely delighted that they're not getting tired anymore. So
It's really
important. Look after your energy. You're right.
amazing.
And the other thing, I think the other thing is not to hang on to whatever's going on with your client. I think um, we don't want to get involved. I mean, it sounds awful, and we are involved during that session. But as soon as a client's finished with you, you need to be able to cut off from it rather than worry about it. And, a lot of people do that. They get totally involved with what's going on. And if you've got a lot of clients, which I have, it would be detrimental, I think, to me, and probably the clients wouldn't get the best of it. So when they've gone, you have to learn to bring down the barrier and leave the energy healing to continue with the client, and then you see them next time, and then you get back into it again.
Exactly, exactly. I love that answer. So what role does intuition play in your work as a holistic energy healer? And how do you distinguish between intuitive insights and personal bias?
Good question. Well, I think most people that do this work are empaths, so they are very intuitive, or the intuition develops, I think, the more clients you work with. And I'm pretty intuitive, but you don't have to be intuitive, because the actual sensing of energy is something which is a physical thing. When I work with a client, where the energy changes in the body, which is usually where the problem is, I can actually feel a change in my hand. So sometimes I feel a little cool, maybe something getting a little bit warmer. Very often in the palm of my hand, I feel this almost like a little vortex of energy. And that indicates to me that that's where the problem is. So that in some ways it's intuitive, but not in the true sense of the word intuition. But very often I think when a client's talking, and like you watch the body language, you listen to the tone of voice. So there are many indicators as to what's going on. So you can pick up after a few years of working with people what is going on, what's the root cause of the issue. And very often, as you mentioned earlier on, very often it's not a physical thing. Very often I find these days it's very often an emotional issue. And it's an emotional issue that's been pushed down. Something's happened, and instead of expressing that emotion, they've simply blocked it. They pushed it. And the English are very good at this, of course. We pushed down all our emotions. And then, of course, eventually that erupts into something, into an illness. And so we need to help them on the emotional level as well.
Yeah, I love that. So what emotion would someone need to push down or push down for a long period of time to manifest cancer, in your opinion?
Well, all sorts of emotions. I mean, emotions are not really we're not supposed to keep on to our emotions. I mean, the idea of an emotion is that we experience it, we express it, we let it go. But a lot of emotions, I find, and I work a lot with people with cancer, with serious illnesses. Very often, it's to do with not grieving. So something happens in our lives, and instead of externalizing our anger or our we don't cry very often. We sort of bottle it all up. Other times it's unfinished business with people. Maybe it's a relationship that's broken off, and we still feel something, and we bottle it all up. So it's those sort of things which I think can manifest themselves into triggering an illness.
I love that. So how do you integrate holistic energy healing with other medical or therapeutic approaches? How do you collaborate with other healthcare professionals, or do you collaborate with other healthcare professionals?
Yeah, I mean, I think often people will say to me, well, what's the difference between spiritual healing and energy healing and quantum healing and healing touch and Reiki? And the honest answer is there is no difference between any of them, because the energy comes from the same source. If you believe it comes from God, it comes from God. So the only difference really is the healer themselves, their personality, and whether you sort of feel comfortable with them, and you feel confident in them, and so on and so forth. And I don't think any of us have an exclusive right to, this is my client. In England, we had a healing centre. And in that center, we had 5 or 6 different practitioners, all doing different modalities. And what we sort of shared, if you like, the issue with a client. So someone would come in, they perhaps have some healing, and maybe during the conversation, or maybe intuitively, I felt, well, actually, some acupuncture would be useful for this client. They've got some sort of pain in a joint. So I would then say to them, well, maybe you should think about doing acupuncture. And in the same environment, in the same room, if you like, in the same center we had, I would then suggest they saw the acupuncturist. They may also then, when they've had acupuncture, feel, well, you know what, aromatherapy might be useful for this particular. So there was this combined effort of different modalities, all helping the client. And I honestly feel, Andrea, that this is the way medicine's going to go, is that the medicine of the future will consist of a medical doctor, several other practitioners, all working in the same building. And we're not trying to sort of, this is my client, hands off. We're saying this client really could do with meditation. So have some meditation. They're suffering from stress or whatever it is. And so that's where I think medicine needs to go, rather than this individualized, this is the only way. It isn't. There's more than one way. Many roads to Rome, as you know. And it's really up to the practitioners to work collaboratively to help clients.
Yeah, I think you're 1,000% right. And so far, every interview that I've done, every healer has said the same thing, that they feel deep within that the future of medicine, the future of healing, is that more people will do it, and it will be integrated more so as almost like not a replacement, but in tandem with like true medical work, like a doctor, a healer, a quantum healer, all that jazz, like all working together. So yeah.
I mean, we know that if someone's suffering from stress, for instance, and there's a lot of people that are in anxiety and stress at the moment, we know that the answer is not to give them a pill that just suppresses what it is that's going on. We need them to be able to get to the bottom of what's causing this stress, and therefore maybe joining a meditation group, maybe learning to relax, maybe doing yoga is going to help that person much more than actually suppressing by giving them a tablet or some potion to push it down even more.
Exactly.
And I think doctors agree with that as well, but they're trained to do a certain modality, and that's what they do. And 1 or 2 of them I've noticed now are starting to just dabble with complementary medicines, and I think that's really encouraging. It's really encouraging.
I've been seeing the same thing. A lot of doctors are breaking away from the traditional what you learn in school and starting to create holistic practices and start study quantum healing and Reiki and all these other
Yeah,
things is because the medical system has been more so a killer than it has been a healer for a very, very long time.
yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And we know, and we've known now for just over 100 years that everything is energy. Everything on our universe is energy, including us. And we're still working with people in the old Newtonian method, which is, you look at bits and you repair a bit. Whereas if we looked at the body as an energy field and then change that, then that's when true healing really comes in.
Exactly. That's awesome. Can you share any personal experiences or transformative moments in your healing practice that have solidified your belief in the power of holistic energy healing?
Well, obviously I've worked with many thousands of people probably. Um, just relating a story to what I was talking about a few minutes ago, which is the emotional blockages. And I've worked in a couple of hospitals in the States here in California, both of them in oncology departments, and I worked not being paid. I worked as a volunteer, if you like, and so I listened to the stories of many people. And one particular lady I remember, she had cancer of the stomach, and I worked with her, and I started to explore with her what had when she was first diagnosed, which was about 18 months, I thought, from what she said. And I said to her, what happened a couple of years, a couple of years ago before you were diagnosed, just before? And she said, oh, my mother died. So I said, I'm sort of sorry about that. And then she went on to say that she hadn't actually spoken to her mother for 15 years. They'd fallen out for 15 years. They'd never spoken. Then her mum died, and this lady was going through all this feeling of guilt, if you like. And so I did some work with her, obviously healing work, and I gave her a few techniques and things to release that feeling of guilt. And within 4 or 5 weeks, this cancer, which was, she told me, was the size of an orange in her tummy, it had shrunk down to the size of a pea. I mean, it was amazing. And
Wow.
a lot of examples of that, where once you get to the core, you mentioned the core issue earlier on, once you get to the core issue and you do something to resolve that, then the body kicks in and really starts to heal itself.
Exactly. Cancer is stomach cancer is one of those big things that is like in a lot of medical terms or a lot of medical opinions is uncurable. So it is amazing that you've
Yeah.
had such amazing results in helping this person heal this issue. So that is just
Yeah.
amazing.
And I honestly don't believe there is anything that's incurable.
Same.
And and I think what we don't do our clients any, or doctors don't do clients any favors by saying to them, you've got this particular cancer or whatever it is, and your prognosis is poor, you've only got 2 or 3 months to live, because that then sets off in the person's mind this fact. And because it's a doctor, we believe it, or we tend to believe it, that they've only got 2 or 3 months. And so the body, I think, then responds to that negatively. And a lot of people then do make their transition after 2 or 3 months. And the doctor thinks, yeah, I was pretty spot on with that. I said 3 months, and 3 months. Now, I think if doctors took a different view and said, okay, you've got this illness, we're going to work together and try and sort it for you. And maybe bringing other practitioners, to help them relax, maybe diet, all of these things, then the possibility of that client getting better is greatly enhanced. Greatly enhanced.
Yeah.
And as you know, there are things like spontaneous remissions where people have got, really serious illnesses, and suddenly they change, they get better. So we know that these miracles can and do happen. It's most of it's up here in our heads, I think.
Yeah, I think you're 1,000% right. So how do you navigate the potential risks or challenges of addressing trauma or deeply rooted emotional issues during a healing session? And I think you already mentioned this, but would you elaborate on it?
Sorry, what you need to repeat that. Sorry.
Okay, it's fine. How do you navigate the potential risks or challenges of addressing deeply rooted emotional issues and trauma during your sessions?
Well, I don't try and avoid it. I
Mhm.
don't try and avoid it. I mean, one of the things I've been doing for the last 8 years, I've been working with veterans, and I see a group of veterans every month and work with them, and really getting to the core issue, which obviously very often is traumatic, is a very positive thing, and obviously because I've been doing it for a long time, I'm fairly experienced at being helping people with trauma, and not seeing it as a negative thing, but seeing it as a release, if you like, of something which again they sort of push down and push down and push down.
Mhm.
And so I don't fear pushing a button and opening up a can of worms. I feel confident that I can help people if that does happen. But of course, you have to be very gentle, and you have to sort of allow it to happen in their time rather than, be direct and sort of push it. I'm not trying to cause problems for people. I just want to be there to support them as and when the time is right for them to release some of this stuff.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So what advice do you have for individuals who are skeptical or hesitant about trying holistic energy healing?
Well, my take on that is in terms of people coming to see me, they've got to be fairly open to want to come and have a healing session, and so the skeptics don't come. But I'll give you a little story. I had I had a lady who I was working with, and this was in England, and she had really bad arthritis. She couldn't move her fingers, and she hadn't been able to move them for a long time. And she used to come with her husband, and her husband used to sit on the couch whilst I was working with her. He used to go to sleep and everything. Within 3 weeks, 3 sessions, her fingers had all loosened up. She was so excited, and she started to knit again, which she hadn't done for many years. And she said to me, "Would you work on my husband? He's got a bad back."
Mhm.
So he was 2 foot away. Now he'd seen me working with his wife. He'd seen this improvement. So I said, "Yeah, of course I will." So he sits in the chair, crosses his legs, crosses his arms, and this is his body language. He says, "Okay, get on with it." And so I said to him, I said, "You don't believe this?" He said, "No, it's rubbish." So I said, "Well, I'm not going to waste my time." And I wouldn't work. I refused to work with him because he was a skeptic, even though his wife, he'd seen this amazing, healing.
Mhm.
Um, he didn't believe in it. And so, I think for healers, if people are skeptics, they won't probably want any healing.
Mhm.
Uh, but my suggestion is if someone's skeptic, and the other thing is, to be honest, I never try to convince people. And
Mhm.
often you talk to people and say, "Oh, you're a healer." I don't believe in that. How does it? Well, if they ask questions, they're sort of open to it. But very often they say, "I don't believe in any of that," and I say, "Fine," and I just leave it at that. I don't try to sell or convince people because either you believe in it or you don't. And it's something deep it's in your heart, whether you're open to this sort of stuff or you're not. Uh,
Mhm.
if you're not, you'll never convince somebody in a month of Sundays. And I know when I first started healing in the early 80s, I went round to doctors in England, and I spent hours trying to convince them this was so good because I was so enthusiastic about it. I still am. And somebody said to me one day, "You're wasting your time. Find the doctors that are at least open a little bit." And I did. I suddenly switched from the ones that said absolute nonsense to the ones that said, "Well, tell me a little bit more." And suddenly I started to make inroads into working with doctors and getting patients from them and so on. So work with the people that are open is my
Mhm.
suggestion. Don't try and stand on a soapbox and convince people.
Mhm. I love that answer. Thank you for that. Um, so in your opinion, what is the future of holistic energy healing? And how do you envision it gaining recognition in the world, or gaining more recognition, I should say?
Yeah. Well, I think in the States it's challenging in as much as the way the pharmaceutical companies, have a stronghold on everything to do with medical and medicine, and therefore they are not open at the moment to what we do. But I think the future, as I said, a few minutes ago, is a combination of medical and complementary therapies working together in the same practice, helping a client with whatever their particular issue is. I think probably younger doctors, I have to say, younger doctors are much more open than some of the sort of diehards, the people that have been doing medicine for 50 years or 40 years, and I don't think they're going to change, and that's fine. I think it's going to be the clients, the patients that actually make the change. I think a lot of people, and I work with a lot of people, are now getting so fed up of all of the medicines that are being prescribed for them and the side effects that a lot of these, I talk to somebody, I say, well, what sort of medication are you on? And they'll reel off 5 or 6 medications. And I'll say, well, why do you take that one? And I say, well, that's because of the side effects of this other one. And I say, well, why do you take that one? Well, that's because of the side effects. And we've got into this we've got into this mindset of we've got to take all of this stuff. And I think we've reached the point now where we've reached saturation, and people are now starting to say, well, what are the other choices I can make? And certainly young people, when they go to the doctors, they're much more open about saying, well, why do I need to take that? What are the side effects? How long do I need to take it for? We're becoming much more inquisitive. And obviously with the internet, we start to look at the side effects, of different stuff. And so I think the pressure is now starting to build up on the medical profession to explore, well, are there any better ways or other ways that we can actually help our patients?
Exactly. I think you're 1,000% right. I think that's where we're going, for sure, where we're going.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Um, if people would like to find you, if people would like to work with you for a personal private session, how can they find you?
Well, the organization that we formed when we came over here, and that's the one that's all over the States, is called Healing in America. Not a very original name, but so it's Healing in America. And people can go online there. They can get our newsletter. And obviously with the advent of doing things on Zoom now, then we're able to actually run our workshops not only in person, but we can run them, and we do run them online. And so this has really opened up the opportunities for people to be able to do the work that we do. And so they're certified energy healing courses. They've been approved by the California Board of Nurses and the American Holistic Nurses. So people in the medical profession that need contact hours, by doing our workshops, they can get contact hours. Same with massage therapists; they also get accredited with doing our workshops. But we get many different people. Some don't. I mean, a lot of people that don't actually want to become healers, even though they do the courses. What they come for is their own personal healing.
Exactly.
And I see some huge transformations of people from the first day that do the course to the end of the course. That it's and that's the buzz that I get. That's the joy I get to just see that this person has made this huge shift and is a different person at the end than they are at the beginning. So Healing in America is the organization.
Okay, that's really awesome. I love that it's an organization of healers. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
And another question, or my last question, is: do you have a gift, a free gift, to offer the audience today?
That's a good question. I'm on my. What can I offer? Well, what I could offer is a sort of a 10-minute free consultation with people. I'm happy to do that if they want to just give me a call, and they can book it on the website if you like. And in 10-15 minutes, I can because one of the things people often say to me is, how do I know, before I commit to your course, how do I know that I'm a healer or can do healing? And so I can tell very quickly, and I believe we've all got a gift, if I'm honest. I think we've all got a natural gift to do healing. You've got to be compassionate, you've got to have empathy, you've got to want to help people. But if people want to find out a little bit more about what we do and a little bit about their own prospects of becoming a healer, if that's what they want, or their own healing, then I'm more than happy to have a 10-15 minute free session with them. If they just reach out, either my phone number, anybody wants the phone number, is 805-407-5366, or the website Healing in America.
Perfect. That is really, really amazing. Thank you so much for giving me your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Andrew, and good luck with your future and what you're up to. I'm very excited about the work that you do as well. So
Thank you. I'm really grateful to have you here. I'm grateful that you gave me your time today. This interview has been absolutely amazing. So again, thank you so much.
you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.